سعودي ما يميل يدعس على نار وفتيل واللي
machine, and suddenly a blunt pain exploded in the center of my skull. I brushed it off and just hit the right side of the whack-a-mole next, but as I did, the same pain tore through the right side of my head. I hit the left side of the whack-a-mole, and the pain hit the left side of my head too. I dropped the hammer and slowly backed out of the arcade, wondering how my head hurt in the exact place I'd hit the game. I remembered my nose surgery from 3 days ago, but figured a nose surgery couldn't magically sync a whack-a-mole machine to my brain. But while walking home, I hit the button on a crosswalk, and a sharp, loud pain instantly hit my forehead so hard I doubled over. It felt like an alarm was blaring inside my head, and it only stopped when the button quit beeping. I got home and instantly tried to Google what was wrong with me, but every time I tapped my phone screen, it felt like someone was tapping my head. My phone buzzed, and my entire skull literally vibrated. I was panicking and went straight to the hospital where I'd had the surgery, looking for answers. I told the nurse everything, flailing my arms and promising I wasn't crazy, but then her eyes exploded. She immediately left and came back with 2 doctors and a tablet. "Do you feel this?" They tapped the bottom left corner of the tablet, and I instantly felt a pain in the bottom left of my head. I told them I felt it, and their eyes widened as they instantly started writing things down. I frantically asked what's wrong with me, but nobody even looked at me. "Give us 1 moment." They stepped outside and started whispering. I knew I needed answers, so I pressed my ear against the door, and what I heard made me shiver. I heard her telling the doctor the chip he installed in my brain during my surgery was malfunctioning. The chip company we work with promised this wouldn't happen. It's locking onto every electrical device he looks at and copying the signals straight into his brain. My whole body went cold as I thought back to the arcade. When I played whack-a-mole, I hit the center of that board with the hammer. The chip locked onto the machine and sent the hit from the center of it to the center of my brain. I realized every random pain in my head was the chip in my brain syncing me to the technology around me. My hands shook as I tapped the tablet in front of me to test it one more time. I felt it in my skull immediately. I had a faulty chip implanted in my brain, and I never consented to it. I hit the center of the school in our African village was shut down due to low funds, so my dad handed me the egg crate. "Now you can work with me in the family business. We can sell eggs together." Tears filled my eyes. "Dad, I'm only 14. I wanted to keep learning so I could have a chance to move to America. Please, can I go to the school in the city?" He laughed harshly. "This business is what keeps us alive. If you ever ask me that again, I'll make sure you regret it." I kept my lips shut, but I knew I needed to find a way to keep going to school, or we'd be living in dirt houses forever. So on my first day in the city, I sold all the eggs as quickly as possible, and as soon as I was finished, I slipped into the back row of the school. My heart pounded as I sneaked in with all the other students because I knew my dad would beat my if he found out I was there. And every night at 2 a.m., I'd sneak kids into our barn to teach them everything I'd picked up from the class. One night, a kid raised his hand. "I want to remember this so I can go to America too." The barn full of students nodded enthusiastically, and I knew it was my responsibility to get us out of poverty. The next morning, I used some of the egg money to buy pens and paper, with no idea how I was going to tell my dad where the money went. And that afternoon, as Dad counted the coins, he set them down mid-count and wrapped his fingers around my wrist. "I know some of the money is missing. If I find out you've been using it at that school instead of market supplies, I'll beat the learning out of you." My body froze with fear, and part of me wanted to just stick to the family business. Until 2 weeks later, when a poster went up outside the market. "Charity event, English exam. Every student who passes gets sponsored to study in America." After I'd sold all the eggs, I poured all of the money onto the table. "Me and my friends would like to sign up. I'm paying for them." On exam day, all of us from the barn sat in the back of the hall, holding our pens like they were made of gold. Halfway through the first page, the doors banged open, and my dad came down the aisle holding the empty coin tin. The American examiner blocked his path, and I stood up on shaking legs and spoke to her in English. "That's my father. Please let him stay." He froze because he had never heard me speak English before. He towered over the examiner and pointed at me. "That's my son. He's a thief. I demand you have him escorted out right now." The examiner walked. My girlfriend gave my dog away while I was visiting my parents for the weekend. I saw dark storm clouds ahead over our whale-watching boat, but the captain turned his radio down and steered us further out to sea. Through the static, I heard the Coast Guard. "Return to shore immediately. Weather conditions are critical." It started to pour, but the captain ignored it. I've had 30 years on this water. A little rain never killed anybody, but the sky was black now, and the waves were getting stronger. A woman looked terrified. "We should go back, right?" He shook his head. "Nobody's getting a refund, so enjoy the ride." There were about a dozen of us on the boat, and he was steering us straight into the storm. storm. People were gripping their seats. The woman stood up. "This is dangerous. We need to turn around now." The captain didn't even look back. "Sit down before you fall and sue me." A man ran to the cabinet where the life jackets were and pulled on it. "But you needed a key to unlock it. Open this. We need the jackets." The captain patted his pocket where the key was. "You don't need them. Sit down and enjoy the ride." Then a huge wave slammed us and water flooded across the deck. I thought the boat was going to tip over any second. I couldn't even swim. The radio kept crackling. "Vessel, respond. You are in critical danger." He shut the radio off completely. People were screaming now, soaked and freezing, and the woman grabbed his arm. "Please," he shoved her off. "One more word, and I throw you overboard myself." Then the boat tilted hard to one side, and water started pouring in faster than it could drain. I knew if I didn't do something, we were all dead. So I grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall and swung it at the back of the captain's head. He dropped instantly. I dug the key out of his pocket and threw the cabinet open. "Everyone, grab a jacket." Then I hit the button to release the life raft and it inflated off the side. People started climbing on. I ran to the boat's radio and yelled, "We're sinking! Send help, please!" Then jumped onto the raft as the current ripped us away from the boat, fast. I could barely see the boat anymore and had no idea if he survived or not. The Coast Guard found us moments later and said if we'd stayed a few minutes longer, none of us would have made it. But then the next morning, the captain washed up on the shore with the radio clutched in his hand. 30 years on the water, and I didn't even see a single whale. I saw dark storm. The door quietly opened, and the loner kid from my class, John, walked into our poker night with his legs shaking. But before I could ask who invited him, my friend stood up and waved him over. He pressed a drink into John's hand and told him, "Ready to bet big?" John nodded and sat down. "I've never been invited anywhere. Thanks so much, guys." He smiled. We started playing, and all my friends immediately folded to John. "You won." They pushed the chips towards him and told him to bet bigger while cheering for him. He smiled and pushed more in while my friends refilled his glass. That's when I caught two of them flashing their cards at each other. John lost the next hand, and as I watched them do it again, my stomach dropped. They were cheating him. When John lost again, my friend clapped his shoulder. "You got this, shark. Win it back by betting more." John hesitated, but my friend instantly scoffed. "I guess you're not as cool as we thought you were." John immediately bet $50. I watched this happen for 2 hours, my hands gripping my cards so hard they crumpled. When I saw John staring at his bank account with sweat beading down his forehead, I told them to stop. They whispered back, "Bro, we're almost at a grand, relax, dude." They refilled his glass again, called him badass, and my heart sank as I watched John say, "This is the last of my college savings." He flipped his kings, but his face dropped when my friend's aces came down. He'd lost everything. He stood up, nearly in tears and wobbling. "I'm sad I lost, but I've never had this much fun. Thank you guys." He headed for the door while my friends counted his chips. I knew I couldn't let this happen, so I got up and caught him at the door. I tapped his shoulder. "I think you've still got some money left." I quickly transferred $500 of my own to his Venmo before he noticed. He sat back down, and I immediately grabbed the deck. "Last hand for tonight." My friends grinned, thinking I was in on it. I shuffled the cards slowly, peeking at every card before handing it out. My friends grinned and instantly shoved everything in without blinking. "Come on, John. You all in?" John's legs shook under the table as he pushed the chips. My friends slammed their kings, but John laid 2 aces on top. His jaw dropped. I won. I won." Their faces went pale. I was flipping burgers at my son's 6th birthday when my neighbor grabbed the spatula out of my hand. "Step aside, kid. I've been doing this 30 years and nobody walks away from my grill hungry." He scraped all 4 patties into the trash that I dry brined overnight the way my dad taught me before he passed. Mason had that exact burger on that exact grill every birthday he's been alive, and he just turned 6. My wife leaned in close. "Babe, that's your dad's recipe. Go take it back." But making a scene would wreck the party worse than he already was, so I told her to let him knock himself out. He clapped his hands and turned to the whole backyard. "Folks, gather round. About to show you how a real cook feeds 30 people the best burger of their lives." He gave my seasoning a sniff and chucked the whole jar into the grass. "Salting before the sear. That's how amateurs kill a burger." So he cranked all 4 burners to the top and dropped a fresh stack of raw patties down. My chest went tight watching a stranger run his mouth over my dad's grill, but I kept it shut for Mason. Then he pointed the spatula at me. "Run grab the spare propane out of my garage, kid. A real cook's always thinking ahead." I told him this batch was already going, but he waved me off in front of everyone, so I walked across 2 yards holding his tank while he played host to my son's party. By the time I got back, he had the lid clamped down, guarding it, telling the parents about patience like he'd invented it. Mason tugged my leg and asked if the new guy made it the way I do. I didn't have an answer for him. The line of kids behind the grill kept getting longer, paper plates empty, and my son kept looking up at me like I'd let somebody take the one thing that was supposed to be ours. He let everybody stand there another 10 10 minutes, then raised both arms for quiet. All right, this is how the big boys do it. He flung the lid open, except no smoke came out. The flame was dead. He cranked all 4 burners wide open and run his own tank bone dry, never once checking the fire underneath him the whole time he was lecturing. He grabbed the first patty and flipped it, black as a hockey puck on the side that caught the early heat, raw and cold in the middle where the grill quit on him. The whole yard went quiet. "It's fine, it's a sear," he said, and took a huge bite to prove it in front of all of them, then gagged and spit. I woke up one morning and didn't feel my wife Sandra next to me. I didn't think much, but when I went